All right, everyone, welcome back to the Breadcrumbs Project, and thank you for being a part of this journey. Even though a lot of you aren't commenting, I wish you would, and get a little bit in touch with us in our chat section. Got a few folks who watch, but never ever comment. So welcome back to the Breadcrumbs Project, and we're going to, since I've got good audio, halfway good video, and a pretty good setup, we're going to start from the very beginning, which is a pretty good place to start. I could go as far back as the Camino de Santiago and the first book that I published, which is focused on the history of the Camino de Santiago. That's very niche. That's a very niche book. If there's a very big demand for me to talk about the forgotten origins of the Camino de Santiago, which is the name of the book, be happy to do so. But right now, it's not a big priority. So, so we're going to start at the root of where my journey in finding the Latins began, because I never was really looking for them at all. What I was looking for was the past names of this very special town called Murcia, which is at the end of the Camino de Santiago. And the Camino de Santiago is a pilgrimage that a lot of people take. And I thought there would be a lot of Americans on this Camino when I first got to know it. And no, it's people from all over the world that are going to the Camino. And so it's quite a phenomenon, and one that I've come to embrace and love, and have become part of the community and really do enjoy it. So I knew, and this is the second book I wrote. This is Finding the Lost Roman Maps, the nine names Murcia. I've since updated it a good bit, but this is the second book that I wrote as is. And I didn't know I was finding the lost Roman maps. I was looking for the previous names of Murcia. And this is the present day area of Murcia. It's a little peninsula that has a very interesting mountaintop and a Roman basilica, which is a sanctuary, which is their sanctuary. But it's an ancient Roman basilica, huge building right here on this plot of land. Hard to describe why. So it has an amazing history that doesn't really square with the history that is repeated, and the mythology is repeated. So that has become a source of friction with me and the local historians and the local archaeologists, because now I'm making sense of the story, and it just doesn't make the establishment feel good for whatever reason. And I can understand that, because we all have our rice bowls. So the reason I knew there were previous names to the city is because of this picture, which is pretty darn famous, and for the town here where I live at. I don't know any of the people in this picture, but I know siblings. So this was taken roughly in the 1950s, 1960s, around there. And Murcia's previous name, and currently it's Muxia, but the previous version of it, as it was known in the 1950s, was Mugia, Mugia, which can be an interesting name as we look further down the line. So I knew this town had a name change, And I just wondered if there were maps reflecting this, and maybe if there was an older name that could be interesting. So I went and started looking at maps online, and sure enough, I hit pay dirt. And I was able to find the name Mongia, which is right here. And so I was kind of happy with that, but curious to see if there were further maps. And what I did notice here, that on this map, we have Coruña. And Coruña is let me do the zoom, is a very big city here, a very big community, a very large port, and probably more or less the New York City of Galicia, and Santiago de Compostela is more Washington, D.C., is the way I look at it. I could be wrong, but that kind of gives you that A Coruña is more of a little more advanced, a little more industrial, a little more involved in trade and banking than Santiago de Compostela. But we know it as La Coruña or A Coruña. Here it's just Coruña. And that made me go, well, that's interesting. Mongia. So what ended up being and here is Santiago. And here's just Santiago without the Compostela, which also made me go, that's interesting. But the key ended up being Finisterre. Okay, this is a very well-known city throughout Galicia, and it is a Latin. It's two Latin words combined. Finisterre. Finis is the fini is end, and finis is end, and terre is land, end of the land. So that was pretty well known by us. And then I went and started looking at other maps. I found them, and here I've compiled them in the order of how the cities grew out of their original colonization by the Latins, by the Romans. And again, we know that Iberia was a very important landmass to the Romans. They really liked it here. They really liked it, especially with our wine and our olive production. And then here in the north, we just have great land for growing crops, and beef, chicken, and really good pork. So yeah, the Romans really liked it here. So then I found the name Mongi, and I found it in an atlas that's part of a well-known map collection. We'll get to that in a minute. But here I found this, Finisterre, and not Finisterra, but Finisterre. I was like, well, that's interesting. And then here, Mongi. I was like, oh, I found something. And I know it's Galicia, so we're good there. Santiago de Compostela with two L's. I was like, okay. And then here, Groin. And I thought, yeah, this is really weird, okay? And it's not just this area here, so not like there's a big conspiracy against the naming of this city, because it's on a huge atlas. And it's New Castile. So this is over the time of the conquests and the reconquest of Spain. And I found it in another map. Here, where my cursor is Mongi, and I'll give you the full screen so you can take a look and zoom into it a little bit more. And there you see Mongi, right in the middle screen. And that is Latin for monks. So we finally have that. So yes, the name of Muxía is based on the name monks, and it's a Latin version of that. So very, very proud of that happening. But then we get here. And this one is where everything starts to just kind of start to go off the rails a little bit and pulling together what had happened. If you see where La Coruña should be, it is Corona with two N's. And we also see Finisterre. So now this is the place where just the wheels kind of fell off everything. And then in the middle you see Muxía with a J. And these are all Latin terms. Finisterre is the end of the land, and La Corona is the corun, crown, new, the new crown in Latin. And I was like, oh, this is really, really, really interesting. And Santiago. So, yeah, I'm curious, man. I'm spending days and hours looking at maps. And then I found this one, which was just glorious. Because all of the names in this map, it's 100% Latin. It's all Latin. All the names are Latin. So this is a point when, and again, I guess I can say Romans, but yeah, I guess we can say Romans because that was the origination. But now it's clearly there's a Western Empire, which is the ones, I guess, that started out and based in Rome. And then there's the Eastern Empire, and that's the Greek Empire. And this is just came together to me yesterday, in doing some more studying, that the Eastern Empire was the Armenian-speaking, Greek-speaking empire, and they really never, I think, the Greek Empire never really gelled with the Roman Empire, because the Greeks are Latin speakers and the Romans are Latin speakers. And I pretty much guess that just was always a water and oil relationship. So when the Western Empire disappeared off to Mexico, if you're new here, we'll get to that, or go back to some of the previous episodes and catch up with that. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this like this, is in fact, like, what? The Latins, the Romans escaping to Mexico? That's crazy talk. It's already well established, and we'll probably get to that a little bit towards the end of this episode. So here I'm like, man, again, this comes from a very well established collection, the David Rumsey collection, and all of my in the books I have all of the pages linked, and it's best as an ebook, so you can zoom in on these maps like I do, and then get a copy of your own one and start to see it. But we have in Latin, corona, new crown. Okay? And then as we come along, we have Nuestra Señora de la Borca. I don't know what a borca is yet, but I'm guessing it's a boat. And that is there when the Latins were here. That is important for my thesis, and it's very frustrating to the locals, and I feel bad about that. But the name of Murcia back then was magia, and that is magic in Latin. A lot of people have looked at this, and that is definitely an A, because the U starts at the bottom here with a little push out. So magia is the name of Murcia, which means magic. And yeah, let me give you the full screen there, and you can see it. Cursor's going over it right now. Magia, magic. And I'll pull it over. No, I don't want to do any of that because I'm messing with my book. So yeah. Yes. All right. So now I've got a whole new brain going. And I am just getting my head wrapped around the fact that, okay, yes, Spain and the Iberian Peninsula was a very Romanized place. Iberia was very Romanized, very Latinized. And so it was like that for a long time. To grow from here, but even to here, and have the vast number of cities that they did at this point was impressive. And the other thing is, look at the level of detail of this map, of this cartography, of the mountain ranges, which are in fact correct, and the shore, which is in fact, again, very correct. To this map from the 1600s, Antwerp, 1609. And then we have these other maps that, well, we'll go to this one. Well, this is the most impactful one. This one comes from a Dutch cartographer, Dutch being the interesting part of it. And these guys are coming out with these maps. They're saying it's the 1700s, which is just impossible, because we know that Finisterre is Finisterre in the 1700s. Coruña has the Eñe, as we see in the map from the 1600s. So this could not be from the 17 or 1800s at all. And then we go farther back in time. And as I said here, they say that this map is from 1827. But where we have Artabrum Promontorio, that's where Finisterre is. And I'm sorry, but in the 1800s, Finisterre was well established. It was not called Artabrum Promontorio, very Latin name, because you can have the Brom and Torio, yeah, that's Latin, but also Prius Celticum, and below it, and that says previous or before Celtic. And the name of Mushia was Grandi Mirium. And the name of Corona was Coronium. And Coronium is New Crown. But the biggest name of that area was Magnus Portus, which has never been known by that. So, and again, the cartography of this is impressive. The coastlines, the details of the little islands, and all of the mountain ranges, again, spot on. So this map in this atlas goes back to the very first processes of colonialization of this part of Iberia, because it has a lot of the old people stuff that are there. And by old people, I mean the previous civilization. So this area, and this is all new news to me and to a lot of people of the current world, and I'm battling folks on this. The key to this is Artabrum Promontorio. So this says the promontory of the people of Artabri. And then here you have the name Artabri. And so this is the Artabri people, which are named in a lot of older texts. I say a lot, but for the number of writers out there, Strabo being one of them, he talks about the Artabri pretty in-depthly, and says, also mentions the promontory, the Artabri Promontorio. That is named, as is Nirium, Promontorio Nirium. So these are named by Strabos, and so this is very well established. What really blew me away is the name for Mushia, which, as I zoom in, is Grandi Medium. Translated to English, Grandi Medium is Grandi, great, medium, marvel. So it's a great marvel. And Tamara is Greek, ancient Greek, and it means this is the sea. So this little bay, this little area here is a great vision, a marvelous vision. And in Greek, this is the sea, Tamara. So this had legend during the time of the Greeks. And this is a very old, very prestigious, very holy place, Mushia. And its original name was Grandi Medium. All right, we will pick up on this tomorrow, but this is how I started my journey with the Latins. In seeing that all of Iberia was Latinized, it was not invaded by the Romans and subjugated and what have you. No, it was colonized. Slowly but most assuredly, it was colonized by the Latins. And so this is what got me going, is realizing that Spain was a Latin country, and I stayed curious and looked at more maps, and that is when I came across this one. And this is the one that is basically Latin America. All right, this has gone on for 25 minutes. Try to keep it under a half hour, and I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll finish up with finding the lost Roman names, and then finding the lost Romans.